I find my fulfillment, our team finds our fulfillment in that connection with our client, not about how the world feels about us.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Business of Luxury Weddings podcast. We are so excited today. I just wanted to tell a quick story here as we get started. I think it was 2009. I was living in Colorado. I was driving up the windy roads to the mountains. Walked into this event center, I think in Keystone or Copper Mountain, and there was this feisty blonde woman there. And that was the first time that we worked with Lish from A Day in May events. So it's been a really long relationship that we've had. I mean, 2009 was that first time. And since we've had the pleasure of working with you quite a few times after, and every single time seems to get better than the last time. So happy that you're here and so happy to know you and be in this industry with you. Can you just tell us a brief about you? Who are you? Where do you live? And all these things. Yeah.
Totally. Well, I also love that you introduced me as Lish because I think that's like the perfect icebreaker. My name is Alicia Fritz. I'm the owner and proprietor, designer, many hat wearer of A Day in May events. We're based in Traverse City, Michigan. But my name is always the first topic of conversation. My mom actually sent me to school in kindergarten with a sticker that said Alicia, like how to pronounce my name. And that was what I wore. For those who know me and our clients often call me Lish, I'm not nearly as cool as Cher or Gaga with a one word name, but Lish is how I'm known. So yeah, we're based in Traverse City, Michigan, a tiny little town, I should say, but also gets some good notoriety. We're like basically on the 45th parallel, halfway between the North Pole and the equator, and right across the pond, the Lake Michigan pond that is from Green Bay. But Traverse City's home, so I'm born and raised here, went away to school. So grateful for that opportunity, but really even more blessed to do what we do and call this place home. For us, like, quality of life and endless chasing shorelines is what we are known for here up north, as everyone calls it. And we also sit in a really unique enclave with regards to titans of industry and like those who have shaped America's industry, really. And with being so close in proximity to Chicago and of course Detroit, the Motor City, our enclave here is just rather unique. And a respite for people who, very similar to our clients or who our clients are, come here to be themselves. So I feel super blessed to be where we're at. And I have an amazing team of wonderful women who support the company. It's not just me. There's no I in team. So you'll hear me. I like to talk a lot about them, not as much about myself. I deflect those conversations.
Having been to Traverse City, it's quite a lovely little spot. Right. Actually, I live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, which they're very similar in so many ways. Right. So yeah, lucky us.
I know. Yeah. You guys have come to stomp around here. So it's great to, I think the uniqueness of where we live is something that's always like stumbles upon our clients a little bit, like, where are you from? But at the end of the day, we go wherever the wind blows us. And so like our adventures with you gentlemen, carried us around the globe. So super excited to chat with you guys. And James, I do remember that day when you walked into Copper, and I remember riding the lift and going up to the top of the mountain, and also like our conversations leading up to it. And funny story, actually, that your picture that you took of that couple, Kristen and Phil, who happen to be dear pals of mine, made it in the Knot Colorado that year. Weird. And that was my first ever framed publication. So,
very cool.
Wow.
In our office. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Love it.
We've only worked with you once in your backyard, right? All the other times been somewhere else. You know, you throw a hell of a party.
I know it's often, I think what kind of like where you guys all call home, you know, I think what's really amazing about our industry, especially when we're serving the clientele that we serve, is that they choose destination locations that mean something to them. And by proxy, being in Northern Michigan, many of our clients do originate from the Mitten State. And whether it's from Western Michigan or Southern Michigan, it's even in the Chicago, Ohio area. This little enclave up here, it's kind of I think it was a unique statistic. It might have been actually back in 2009. I think Fortune magazine maybe put out an article talking about the shoreline that Traverse City sits within. And it's about 110 miles. And we're kind of smack dab in the middle of that. So if you go a little bit further south along the Sleeping Bear Dunes and you go a little bit further north up towards Mackinac, at one point in time, about 30% of the nation's top wealth reside in that little stretch of shoreline over summer months. And when you think about the Grand Dam of the Great Lakes, the Grand Hotel, and how that was built, it was a respite, right, for people to escape the hot temperatures. And so being out of the water, we are about 20 degrees cooler sometimes in the summer without that humidity. And so it became a place where generational families flocked to, and they spent their summers and they fell in love. They stole their first kiss, and, they made all these like goosebump memories together, and they want to share that with people because weddings are about sharing your love and your love story, but also bringing people together. And so this is, even though Northern Michigan and specifically where we live is not the easiest place to get to, it's often the road less traveled, which leads to like the really sweet stories. So
yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, so we're here.
I love that history.
A standout thing for me with you, aside from the events being spectacular, is you talk a lot, not just about my client, but about the families. So is that something that's a part of your ethos, like how... Because it's consistent. It's always the case. It feels you're connected to the family more than anything. I'd like to hear more about that.
I think from like a wedding is not just about a couple. I mean, of course it is. It's their love story, but it really is about forming a family. And I always say we're in the greatest business in the world that we get to make a family. Like, how cool is that? And then we also get to bring more families together. And so we try our very best to honor all the various relationships that a marriage brings to the table, whether that's a mother-daughter, a father-son, sisters, brothers, all the dynamics, even if it's like godmothers or your mom's best friend who loves planning weddings, so is going to join a part of the conversation. It is a family affair. And it's a family milestone. And so we often say in our office that we also get to make memories, for people. And a memory isn't singular, and very rarely does it ever belong to just one person. So the mentality of a generational involvement is also like echoes through part of our core, which is like building a legacy and a tradition upon that. And I think that I'd be remiss if I didn't say that, we're all a bit of a helpless romantic in this industry. And when I think about the families that we've had the opportunity to serve and be the hands and feet for bringing together these, celebrations, whether it's big or small, the one thing that's always the same throughout them is it's so amazing to watch, no matter who the client is, what their last name is, where they're from, what their story is. You get to see moms being moms, daughters being daughters, dads being dads, kids being kids. And it's so disarming. Because you get to build and protect a space that is so sacred to them. And so that doesn't fall on deaf ears for us because that's what it's about, really.
Yeah, that's such a good point, right? There's such an objection typically with luxury and ultra luxury. People think, oh, it's stuffy, it's rude, it's bridezilla. I'm like, no, it's what you just described. 95 beautiful families, like kids, like, yes, sure, grandpa invented matches and they own everything, but like just a family. Like, and I love, like, it's not what people think. It really isn't.
It really isn't. Yeah, I mean, I think the opportunities that our clients have in their life, of course, they're extraordinary. And it is amazing for us as the hands and feet of these families and clients to like bring their visions to life, especially with the budgets and the resources that we are stewards of. But it's really easy to also, I think, unless you, as the professionals, you have to have some very strong core foundational values to not lose yourself within these moments. These moments are not for us. These moments are for them. And we are just part of creating it. And So there's times even still to this day where I, am kind of like checking myself, like, is it okay that I'm here for this? That they feel so comfortable with our presence that we're all right to be, in this moment.
Yeah.
And sure, it has a bigger gravitas at times, depending on who that client is and what they may or may not be known for. Matches is a great example. Just because it's something that connects your world to theirs.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's more what it is. And when you work for such wonderful humans, like we've had the pleasure of serving together as a team and also independently in our own rights, like that's the part that I use to always keep myself grounded, because they can work with anybody in the world. They have the opportunity to hire any person at a whim that they would like to. But when they choose to make the investment in your art, in your craft, in your creative, in your process, like it says something. And that level of ownership just resonates throughout. And that's something that we try to carry throughout like our whole team and how we build our team too.
Yeah.
So
I was listening to a podcast, funnily enough, this last week, and they were talking about, this gentleman was talking about a research study where they put people in a room and somehow they were measuring brain frequencies based on their emotions. And what they found was the most powerful frequency from any given emotion was, or emotional experience was authenticity. Like it was like 10 times more stronger than love.
wow.
And you have this unique ability, Lish, and your team to be so authentic, but then to draw in like really authentic people for clients. And I'm just curious, is there something about your process? Is there something behind your intentionality that allows you, and maybe it's just the weddings we've had the fortune to work with you on. But it seems to me like there's this trend, there's this pattern. Is there something that you do to bring in this authentic client?
Other than being default awesome.
Just kidding. I was going to say brainwashing, but I'm just kidding. No, wow, thank you. To go all the way back, and I don't know why I get emotional talking about it, but yeah, I mean, what we do is real work.
Right.
And I think back through the families that we've served together and our most recent adventure, which took us very far from home. And I think about the witnessing that we get to bear into our clients' lives. And all of us just really want to be seen and heard, right? And to be acknowledged for who they are and for what they want. And when I started A Day in May a really long time ago, I didn't really know the path that I was going to take. And if you would have told that girl 17 years ago what I would be doing now, I would have laughed in her face. I would have said, absolutely no way possible. I'm this small town girl from Northern Michigan, who stubborn as hell, who won't take no for an answer, and doesn't believe that anybody should be treated differently than the next person. We all deserve the same. But I've always felt that running a business with the integrity and honesty is at the corest of values. And my grandfather used to run a metal treatment plant on the Detroit River, and my grandfather was like my icon. And I looked up to him in so many ways for just how he carried himself through business. He was personable. He sat on boards. He was a man bigger than himself, but he always made time for all of us and led with just this gentleness. But you could see the power that he brought and commanded when he walked in the room, not as somebody who people cowered in, but just as a way of, like resonance. And I can see, I want to hang around with Chuck, And so early on, I think I just got emotional because you tapped at something that I haven't felt in a really long time. But early on, I used to say, like, I want to run my business the way my grandfather ran his business, which is to do good business. And I think at this luxury level, people often, not everyone, but I think it's very easy to assume that more is more. And in the opposite, and in this world, it's not. It is about finding connections, and it's about dialing into your client's priorities and amplifying their vision and checking yourself aside. And that, I think, is something that I don't know that it can be taught. I guess it's just always been a part of my life. And, I stay humbly grounded as I, live my airport has 4 gates and is very tiny, and I don't have a lot of metropolitan access. But I really do believe that for our clients and the ones that we have had together, but also beyond, we want to put people around them that are going to make their life and their day better in that moment. So it isn't just about working with who's the hottest, who's the greatest, who's the up and coming, who's the splashiest. It's about how can we put together people, not only from the back of house or the vendor perspective, but from the client's vision and the client's seat into their own day. How can we make sure that every touch point along the way just is really supporting of them having this most extraordinary experience?
I suspect I know how you'll answer, but like, what is for you the biggest strength of a team member for you? Your team in general for an event, like what is that biggest? You're like, that's what I want. Give me that. In anybody, a photographer, a florist, or whoever.
Sure. I mean, I think just like shoot straight with me. At the end of the day, like we all put our pants on one leg at a time. And I know, and everybody's human, but these stakes are high, right? Especially when we're in remote areas or have, very demanding timelines, which most of our events, at this level all do. But just come straight. I think just being honest and upfront, so many times I think do all of us feel insecure, or if we made a mistake, like we are all human, you're going to fuck up and it's okay, but I'm still going to love you, but let's solve it together. Because I think what I look for is if there is a problem, like, let's do this as a team. Like, let me help you. Don't fall on the sword. You don't need to. We don't need any more casualties if something's gone wrong. Let's figure out how we can work together on this, and also to protect the client. So I think that's a really big trait of, what we look for.
This is where you almost feel like a lawyer and a therapist rolled into one. Like, I believe you, like you're here for your client. That's what you're saying the whole time. Throughout the process, I'm here for them, their interests. That's it. That's your only skin in the game here. Which is
well, I love my vendor team too. I think that's a good, I think that as we talk through our process and what we look for, now granted, like everybody's personalities aren't going to align. That I totally get. But we do want to put together personalities and people who are going to bring out, even from a juxtaposed position, who's going to bring out something unique that the client didn't even necessarily know that they wanted or needed. And as much as, we would not be here today without the incredible families that all of us have served. But it is the power of the team. And I love, love, love breathing life into our vendor team about telling the family stories and creating an expectation of like what you all will experience when we're together. But also it's our job to steward those relationships, to get you not to buy in a false way, but get you to understand really who they are in the manner that they want to share with their clients, they want to share with their guests. And so I equally love that part of it, because like even through the events that we've had, just ideating together about, hey, we're going to this crazy little island that nobody's ever gone to before, and we're going to take 40 people for this epic birthday party. But I don't know what we're going to do there yet, but let's talk about it. And just dreaming also together gets everyone else excited. Granted, I don't want to waste anyone's time. Of course, we're the planner and we're going to do the work and put together the scope and, the bumpers on the bowling alley. I really think it's important to make sure that we support you. It's a huge part.
No, and I realize it's funny on this podcast. You have this experience with somebody, and then you hear them articulate like the thought behind it, and you're like, oh, right. Yes, that's why the experience that I had was the way it was. And I'm just having that moment right now where I'm realizing, like, when we show up at your events, like we hardly ever get to meet, other than like maybe 1 or 2 phone calls. We rarely get to meet people that we're going to photograph ahead of time. And I realize when we show up at your events, like I feel like I know these people, and it's because you've done such a good job of saying, here's who they are, like, and like lots of detail about it, you know, in this really excited way. Like you are truly excited about every one of your clients that you get to work with. And I think that's part of that authenticity, is that somehow you've drawn these people to you.
Oh, thanks.
And you're authentically excited to work with them. And then that comes through that I get excited or we get excited to photograph them, and that whole experience. So it's a great process for anyone that's listening. That level of detail is really nice from a photographer's perspective.
Yeah. People look differently.
It also feels like from the other side arriving, because we don't get to meet our clients, like they know us already as well. Like you've informed them, like they've been briefed, like they have, which is immensely helpful if you're coming in cold like that. Is that something you do in the sales process? I'm curious, how do you do that? Do you just introduce people? Do you make a full on?
So let's, like, from a photography perspective, just to like put you guys on the spot a little, but you spend more time with these humans on their most magical days than we do. I mean, while I would love to be the lady in waiting, or the man in waiting, whatever the equivalent to that is, I'm not necessarily always that person because I'm running around in other locations. But to make sure that there's a connection of some sort, I don't know, I don't get it all right all the time, but pretty close. If we can put the right like-minded people together, and we can share a little bit more about what makes you tick and what makes them tick, and can there be some commonality, it's almost like, in a small way, and not to be corporate or clinical in this, but we give you both talking points. So that way you aren't just walking in cold. Because then you can find that common thread, and everybody has a common thread. You just have to, sometimes the small talk isn't what you're doing on the day of your wedding, when the energy of 1,000 suns is pulsing through your body, and all you can think about is that person at the end of the aisle. Or in the case of you guys, you might be being like, oh shit, Lish has us running all over the place. How are we going to make this next time? I got to hit this mark. I got to get him feeling comfortable. So let's, hey, smile. So we want to kind of help, I guess, grease the wheels a little bit in that.
Sure.
But also from a photography and we refer to our, photo and cinema teams as documentarians. And we've developed that word, and we've used it for a number of years now, just as a way, like, you are documenting something that is historical to their family, and you're creating an archive that no one else will ever recreate. And so the way that we chat with our clients through this documentation process is really about a resonance of art. And they have to see themselves in your art first. And that's a very important aspect of picking your documentation team and your videographers and your photographers. And if you can see yourself in that, and then you identify with the wonderful humans like you guys behind the scenes, then like it's kind of a home run. And you can build upon that throughout the weekend. So
it literally becomes the best job in the world. It's like crazy. It's off the charts good. It really is. Sorry, Jen.
We really do have it.
Just to follow up on that, I'm curious about, because we hear a lot of times like, at the luxury level, these planners have their teams. Like, they're not going to work with anyone new. Everything is set. Wow. And the more I do this, the more people we talk to, like, that's not really true. But can you describe, like, how can someone break in to work with a day in May? Like, it doesn't matter, a florist, a photographer, what does that look like from your perspective? You're like, no, go away. James and Schultz are the only people we want to work with. Like,
right.
Well, Of
Yeah,
course.
that's the message that I'm hearing. But
Totally.
Apparently.
Absolutely. That's a really great question. I think from, in this day and age, it's so easy to connect with, like, to reach out to somebody in so many different platforms, right?
Right.
So to kind of take this back to like the lowest common denominator of how to connect with us or how to like get on our radar. For those of you who know me, and it's no secret, social media and I have a strange relationship. It's maybe the best way to put it. But also 95% of what we do is NDA clients. So a lot of our work is not shown, and we're okay with that.
Yeah.
So I would say probably not, what do the kids say these days? Sliding into my DM. Probably not the best way to reach me. But just, I do think dropping a personalized email of expressing themselves and who they are and putting together, like if it is a photographer, I will go check out your social. I'll go to your website, but send me something that's really interesting that you feel passionate about, or a little story. Like, I think all of us we're storytellers in this business, right?
Yeah, totally.
And we should never, ever, ever forget that as a part of any of our creative process. Your story unfolds once you get to your event. Our story has been unfolding since the moment that we first had an interaction with that client.
Yeah.
And so I generally don't really judge a book by its cover, unless it's wine. Sometimes I judge.
It's not that.
Not that. But I think making a connection of like giving us like a little story about yourself or about an impact, a moment that stood out to you, and sending some of those images that support that story, and finding a way to make that type of a connection on that human level. We'll get to your portfolio, and we'll get to all of like the beautiful clips and galleries and albums that you've made. But I want somebody who finds a connection with us, and because at the end of it, this is also about relationships. This industry is about relationships, forward facing of the client, vendor relationships, just like ours began so long ago. And I think that also makes you stand out. There's nothing wrong with, sending in a hello and this is my portfolio and I hope we can work together. But I think if you want to make an impression, maybe just spend a little bit extra time, trying to figure out who they are.
Yeah, connection again, right? That's the thing. Because it's almost, a photographer writes you and their first thinking is, how amazing is my work? That's the key. That's the thing that'll get me over the line. And we keep saying to them, that's not the thing that gets you over the line. That's a given at this level. If you're writing Lish, your work should be amazing. That's a given. That's not going to win you the work. Everybody's work's amazing here.
Right.
What's the connection? What's the thing where, that's the real question.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think them.
Yeah, you did. And above all of else too, like, even if it's just like, hey, we don't have a connection. I saw that you went here and that's really cool. Or like, I would love to work with you. But just tell me something personal about yourself. And I think that just opens the door to conversation. This business is tough, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't need to be hard.
Do you think there's something to be said as well then for just some persistence and patience in that pursuit? Right? As opposed to just going, I've reached out. I'm a photographer. I've reached out. It didn't work. I didn't get work and going away. Or saying, like you just say, I saw this. Nice to meet you. And you come back later again in a little bit. Like, that. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, my mom used to say the fortune is in the follow-up. And I get caught in that because it's like, I'll send an email and then 5,000 emails later, text messages running around, whatever it is that we're doing. It's impossible to keep track sometimes of all those little snippets.
Early.
And especially when we're prioritizing our communications for what is, what is coming down in our project management schedule. People do get, what is it? Ghosting. I'm probably the queen of sometimes like, oh, that's not important right now. I'm gonna push that down in my inbox. But float back up top. Like, I think that persistence.
That's what I'm saying. You're not the most important thing in their world by far. So when you write them and they don't respond, your brain immediately goes,
totally.
Like, it makes no sense. You're not that. Right? You're not that important. They didn't even. Yeah. Just keep coming back because we're always amazed by that. And that follow-up, that quote is the magic. And the follow-up is the fortune.
Fortune is in the follow-up.
Fortune. I like that.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a quote. That'll be on our social media. I'm sure of it.
There's been so many quotes already.
And you'll never see it.
Yeah, I won't.
Speaking of that, I remember you saying one time, like, I forget how you phrased, but it was something along the lines of, like, we're the biggest small company you've never heard of, or something like that.
Yeah.
like you're saying you're 95% of your clientele is NDA.
Mm-hmm.
You said earlier, like, we don't have a lot of notoriety, right?
Yeah. It's different.
Can you talk about that? That sounds intentional. I mean, maybe it's partly intentional, maybe it's partly, but I get the sense that you just like to want to live your life.
Yeah.
And have an amazing job. And you don't care about
being known
and all
like
these
that.
things.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Is that sounds intentional? Because I can imagine there's a lot of people like, I don't want to do this at that level and I just want to live my life.
Yeah.
So I think maybe hearing that from you might be helpful a little bit.
Yeah, sure. It's kind of interesting. I think like really kind of where a lot of it stemmed from and is really like where we live is very different, you know? Yeah. So we are a little bit more remote. And that was tough for us, like breaking into this market, or maybe that's not the best way. I think the market kind of found us in some ways, but being just confident enough to go toe to toe with incredible colleagues of ours who are in New York or LA or Miami, you know, just Chicago. There's these big cities that gravitate and pull talent, and it's very much comparison is the thief of joy for us at times. You know, we're like, man, like we don't have anything cool like that. But I would also say too, I think by the nature of our clients truly respecting boundaries and their privacy, it has really created a great system for us too as well, which is I will give you 110%, 1,000%, whatever percentage level you will have of us if you are a partner, if you're a client of ours. But we also do want to maintain a life. And, you know, we have, my husband and I have a 4-year-old and we're both very busy. We travel for work. So there's a lot of energy that's exhausted in just the art of doing our job. And when we are down, we want to be down. Like we want to be home. We want to be connecting with our family. We want to be enjoying ourselves. And so when I think a little bit about, you know, the notoriety or not knowing who we are, that is part of it is just, you know, the fact that it takes a lot of work to keep up an image. Also, I have always said I wear black for a reason. Like this is, while it is about us and the work that we do to an extent of pulling it together, it's not about us at all. It's about the client. And so to me, I think I've always had more of that like service mentality and hospitalitarian undertone to our events, which is amplifying them, not us. Yeah. And then the other part is being a little bit mysterious, right? Like I've always liked, So, you know, like I'm trying to equate it to something prophetic, but it's like there was this quote that used to go around like about Detroit and how Detroit works harder than everybody else. And, you know, Michigan has always been a working man state and Michigan is still relatively unknown in many ways. And the event industry is not quite as on the forefront, maybe of cutting edge production, design, you know, experiences just based by, again, proxy. We're not in these epicenters of the world like New York and LA or Chicago where things are happening more frequently in that capacity. However, I've always bet on the underdog on any game, in any sport, in anything, because I love that Rudy story, I guess, right? Like to go and know our sports analogies. And for us, it's like, I find my fulfillment, our team finds our fulfillment in that connection with our client, not about how the world feels about us. And I think also too, in this level, and in the luxury industry, there are clients who want to work with a certain photographer, a certain designer because they followed their work or they have a celebrity following. And that's amazing. And we love that when that happens. But there are other clients of ours who see the integrity that we're going to bring, the professionalism that we lead with, the honesty, the transparency, the diligence, the ownership, the creativeness, the design ethos. They see the value in that, and they know that when we say that, we are not bullshitting them, and we are going to deliver on that time and time again. And so for us, that we've never advertised. We've only been word of mouth business since we started.
Yeah.
And we are kind of passed along through different families via that coveted text or that, phone call when somebody needs something, or they're looking for someone who they can trust. And I think that is really, that fills my cup a lot more.
Yeah. And I like, again, how particular each market is, right? Because that's a selling point for your client, not notoriety, but that it's quiet and private. Where maybe for another market within luxury, that notoriety is a draw. That is part of what they want.
Absolutely.
And for that client, your pitches are like, who, what, where, no. And it's very interesting.
And I think that's so poignant, Otto, because there is enough business for all of us.
It's crazy.
There really is.
Yeah.
There's so much business that is out there. And we always say, we don't want all of it. We just want the right business for us. And that is true. Sure, if you lose a job and you're really excited about it and, that would have been cool, yeah, of course, that's a bummer. But you know what? You'll move on and something else will come around and it wasn't maybe meant to be. So I really believe there is enough for all of us. And so finding your niche and carving that out is really important. And it took me a really long time to be comfortable with that just because of, seeing the extraordinary talents that our industry has amongst all disciplines, from catering to entertainment.
No, totally. It's true. Yeah.
It's insane the level of the colleagues like you gentlemen, but who we get to work with and the shit we see them do, you're like, holy crap, that is insane. And you want to cheer them on, and that's so amazing. And so, but I think in that aspect though too, we've found our niche, and we know what is true to us, and we know what we do want and what we don't want. Really? And you have to be confident in towing that line throughout all disciplines of your business. And the moment you waver is the time that you're going to slip, and it might not necessarily be noticeable from a client perspective. It might be a financial error. It might be a reputational error. It could also be just a quality of your own life and mental health. And this business is tough. There's no doubt about it.
You have to manage it, right? Especially if you're good at it, and especially if it means as much to you as it does to you or to us, because that's when you're in danger of never switching that thing off.
Totally.
And then you get caught in expectations, which is like this. You always want to exceed it, but you can't always exceed it. And even when you do, you're like, but it was just like a level 1 exceeding. It was like, more. And then you just suck the life out of the thing. So you have to manage it. You're right. It's because it is a long game, and it's very repetitive. So if you don't figure it out, you're going to suffer.
Totally.
It's not going to be nice.
You are going to suffer. Yeah. Maybe we're all just getting smarter as we get older. I don't know.
I'm not. You probably are.
For punishment. Give me the bigger mountain to climb and I'll climb it.
I think I bottomed out at 16. I've just kind of been stand dragon.
Oh, yeah. It's it's an interesting thought. Yeah. Kind of a cool full circle and things like that. I love it.
I'm curious, is there something obviously 2009 is when we met you. I think it was 2009. And I've just seen this what seems to me like this meteoric rise. I mean, you were amazing then. Is there something that you could point to? What's one thing that you could point to that you could say this is the thing that led to the success?
Oh yeah.
Is there a business practice? Is there something? What is it? Is it mindset? What was it for you?
Orange theory.
I only run if I'm My sister-in-law who works for me, she's extraordinary. she is a runner, and everyone who knows me, like, if Lish is running, you need to run because something is wrong. But
That's the real problem. Yeah.
yeah, right. Uh, um, you know, something else that's like a part of things that I have said throughout my career is like, I will, we all will. We will run headfirst into a wall every day, but you got to pick yourself back up again. And it's how you do that. And it's the willingness to learn, not do the same thing over again. Don't run into the same wall. Don't hit yourself in the same place, but you've got to be persistent and you've got to find that spark within you of what really matters in that capacity. And so I embrace, like, sure, does it suck to fail or to like make a mistake? Yeah, especially if it's a bigger one or it's more noticeable, but it's how you respond to that. And it's taking ownership of that. It's having the responsibility of also, what does that mean as a teaching opportunity for your team or just from like the peers around you? So I would guess I was always would say, like, I kind of knew I wasn't going to win instantly, but I knew I had to pay my dues. And that was something I think a long time ago, at least in our industry, when, 17 years ago is a long time. I see these incredible titans of our industry, with like Michelle and Lynn and Marcy and the pathway they paved for all of us, which is amazing. But still, about 15, 20 years ago, all of us had to kind of pay our dues. There wasn't social media. There wasn't, the internet was there, but the photography and the revolution of our industry and this rapidness of visual stimuli wasn't really there.
It's true.
And so I think about remaining hungry to like continue to prove ourselves or to get our name out there in the spheres that we could, again, from an amplification, it was like, I knew that my best work was going to be people who I was interacting with. I didn't have a huge marketing budget or an advertising. I wasn't, again, in a very metropolitan area where my name could catch, fire. I had to work really hard to make sure that I controlled my reputation by just who I was, without inventing a fake character. It was like, either you're going to like me or you're not, like, and this is what we do, or we might not be the right fit for everyone. So I think just being true to yourself, again, is so important, so you're going to fail, but what do you do when you do that? What happens after? Be yourself. It sounds so basic, but I used to be a golf pro in my former life. And so I was a teaching pro, and I loved teaching kids because it was so fun to just talk about these fundamental things. And I always go back to even lessons I had with guys who are, collegiate athletes that I was coaching or women. And we always went back to the fundamentals. And it was always about how you lined up for your shot, how you squared your hips, what position your club face was in throughout your swing. It wasn't the fancy grips or the balls or sure, all of it is, adds to that performance value. But like, you got to have the right stuff. And if you've got that, then lean into that and it'll carry you. And then I think the other thing too is amplifying others. That is a big part. Like, you'll hear me talk about sports just because I went to the University of Michigan. And so, which national champions, it's awesome. Finally. But there, Bo Schembechler was this revolutionary collegiate coach. And, any person who goes to Michigan knows who Bo Schembechler is. And he was all about the team. And that I grew up with. My grandfather went to Michigan. My uncle went to Michigan. And so for me, like the resonance of it is about the collective we and what we can do together. It's not about the person, is another like factor, at least in my success, I would say, in the success of A Day in May and what I've had. And that team doesn't mean just like there's so many different versions of a team. And for us, we've got teams with our clients, and that's a team. We've got teams with our vendors, and that's a team. We have our internal team. I've got my husband and my family, that's another team. But I think thinking about what you can add to those teams and how you can bring your best stuff forward to amplify that is another big part of it. I don't know, not a lot of secret sauce, but it's all about resonating, those basics. those principles.
No, but that's why you're so successful. That's our biggest position of strength is in collaboration. It's basis of our partnership, but just in life, all the exceptional things are in collaboration. Always.
Yeah. Always.
It takes the pressure off you. It makes you better. It's just, it's more enjoyable. It's a better long-term strategy because it's more enjoyable.
Yeah, that's an interesting point to touch on too. I had a client more recently who was like, I can tell you're in it for the long game. And I was really appreciative. It's a new relationship for us. And someone who I have a lot of respect for, who is, deeply influential. But for her and to find recognition in such a very short onset of working with us, to see that that's what we stood behind was really, really, felt really awesome to be recognized in that capacity. And I think that's the other thing. And depending on what aspect of like the event stratosphere that you're in, what discipline you're in, I think planners and photographers perhaps might have a little bit of a lower barrier to entry into this industry, which I love because it can spark new talent in an instant, and you can see that and you want to champion. But in others, it's also kind of a stepping stone, right? Of like maybe what's coming next. And within the luxury sphere, our clients, your clients, this collective clientele at this ultra and high net worth level, they can see that coming from a mile away. And you don't know them better than they know themselves.
Yeah. Sorry.
When you were talking about the fundamentals, I was thinking, that's totally true. But there's also something about you where you are like super savvy, right? And you're looking for opportunity. And there's a funny story.
Campfire story hour.
Campfire story about this. I don't know if I should tell it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Along these lines, like we were working with you several years ago, right?
Right.
And then we finished up this job. I went to bed. The next day, I'm having breakfast with you, and you're like, I'm tired. I was up till 5 a.m. I was like, what? Were you working? And you're like, no, I wasn't working. I was sitting around the fire with drinking wine with such and such person who controls the board of all these things, right? And we were drinking wine, except I wasn't drinking the wine. I was just pouring it out.
But I was
it's like a scene straight from a movie. She's like, "Oh, here, more wine," and you're just pumping the guy for information, not in a negative way, right? Just like
I was curious.
I need to stay alert so I can get this information.
Nonetheless.
Yeah. I mean, you're totally right. You got to have an edge in this business, and that doesn't mean that you're doing anything that's conniving or undermining. But you got to know when you got a moment to take advantage of, and that was a moment to take advantage of. And there's a few of those where it's kind of like, I'm just curious how this works. So yeah, you're right, James. We were sitting around having a fire. There was a couple of us that had wrapped the event, and it was an influential person who had a seat at the table. Perhaps that's like a better way to say it. They weren't necessarily in control of a large footprint, but they had a seat at the table that did control it. And part of this luxury world, and what is so fanciful, or what I think Succession has amplified and created the buzz around, right? Quiet luxury and all this, generational families, is really learning and how to learn from proxy. I just happened to grease my wheels a little bit with refilling his cup and dumping mine out. But I was curious. It's like,
how facilitate?
Like, how does this place work?
Just helping.
Yeah. I was just helping.
He was clearly stuck. He was like, it wanted to come out. You're like, yeah, brother, like just another
Absolutely. Like, mind you, let me also say, there was no name specific mention. I wanted to know how the corporation worked, because understanding these levels of experiences at this level helps to allow you to give you precious information of how to pivot and amplify, not only from a client perspective, but like be valuable to these team members and resources. And that's not being two-faced. It was
No,
honestly
it's brilliant.
curious as to like, tell me how this place works, because my mind is blown and I've seen a lot of stuff, but I know that I haven't seen it all. And this was a new scene for me.
Yeah.
But yet, what is their special sauce? So that's kind of what I wanted to get at, was like, what is really about this place? And my favorite segment of like, growing up as a kid was when Mr. Rogers did the factory tour, or when Reading Rainbow would take you to like the crayon shop. Like I loved seeing how things work. It's like, as an architect or engineer, I love seeing how the puzzle pieces come together. And so throughout this event that we had together, yes, James went to bed and I kept drinking. But I wanted to see more about these puzzle pieces. And I think that there are times, I love the word savviness. It's like, you also are in control of your own destiny, right? Like, if there's one thing I think anybody who knows me would say, and you guys would say this as well, my husband too, like, I am not a pushover. And I am definitely somebody who gets what they want. Not in a way that's rude, but I don't take no for an answer, especially when I know that the right way or the better way to do it, and what's going to be better for the client, what's going to be better for us, like, is obtainable. Like, just don't tell me no because that's what your canned response is. And so in the case of this particular event, we were getting a lot of canned responses and we were chasing our tail, thus wasting our clients' value, like investment. And quite frankly, I was like pissed about it. And so I didn't find prey to take advantage of. We developed this relationship, worked awesome with them throughout the whole course of like our duration with them. And so when the s'mores came out and the wine, we had a magnum of wine we had to finish, I thought there was no better time than the present to learn.
How have you cultivated that? That is that just part of who you are? Like, you always had that, like, I'm not going to take no for an answer, I'm going after this? Or have you cultivated that?
I think it's both. I definitely know, throughout my experiences, throughout my life, throughout all of our journey, all of us have our own wounds and baggage and scars. But I've always learned that I've always had it from within me that, I was going to keep moving forward. However, there's a softness more, I think, to it now, a softness in the fact of like, it's not about me. It really is about what can I learn and how can I put it together? Not for my own betterment of like making myself look better than anyone else, but just truly from a point of understanding. Because in this world that we also live in too, we could all be saying the same word, but it means something different to all of us. So true. Yeah. And so from a communication standpoint, like in this particular instance, I needed to have closure from this event because it was wild what we were getting drugged through. And my closure resulted in by like me getting a better understanding of how things actually work and recognizing that even this internal system was broken. So my validation came in the form of the 6th glass of Malbec of being told that like, you're right and we're wrong. And so that...
And some nuggets of how we might get more business there.
Exactly. Yeah. How can I be of good service to you? How can I make you look better? Yeah, for sure.
No, but that is a standout thing of successful people. Is why you've made it, because you have this job. It's already a success. You got it. You're at the event. Everybody's happy. That's a win. You paid for it. That's good too. Yep. But now you're like you're walking away with so much more.
Totally.
So you're getting paid like 10 times over for the same job and you're learning from it. And you're not drinking wine. So
no, I didn't have a headache. I was tired the next morning. But I think that's a great segue is like, you need to recognize the opportunities that are in front of you. And there's the right way and the wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
And the wrong way is not to go up to a guest who is, at your client's event, who is someone of power and influence that you want to meet, not the time and place. But you know who might be? The bar manager who's running the restaurant, who sees all of these people regularly and who's looking for someone to help make a better connection with that influential guest and doesn't quite understand how to get there. So going back to connections and relationships, like being connectors in this business is our job. And so as we think through, it's like, that is something that I have learned over time to be comfortable about when to assert myself and when not to. Like I said earlier, there are moments in us life where I think all of us have felt, especially at this level, where it's like, should I be here? Like, is this all right for me to be in this space? But when you have that confidence and you know when you should be in a room and when you should not be in a room, you can also share that knowledge to help bring that to the forefront of other people for recognition and and to give everybody else a better experience. Yeah. So that's definitely a muscle that I've learned more of over the years, and I've definitely flexed. I've definitely built that muscle up over time too.
Yeah. But that's so evident again as well. I talk about it, but it's the hours. You've put in the hours.
Yeah.
So that intuition, those little micro skills and the big ones are all there. They have layers to them.
Yeah.
And you're at that point where the game slows down a bit. So you're like, oh, it's obvious. Like you do this and,
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of funny, like talking to you guys, I think it's like breathing. We've been, we do have the best job in the world and we could romanticize about it, but like, let's be real. This is also like, there's a reason why the event industry is a young person's game, because it is just so taxing in so many ways. And how fast do we have to be able to flip from item to item to item and be on our toes, especially when we're activating and we're in the event management of a program. Like it is all hands on deck and it takes a lot out of you.
I'm just thankful I am still a young person, so I'm good. Good.
I know. We know you're young.
No, there's no young persons here. Not one.
But I'd like to still think both of us in this industry, we're leading by example in that manner, Yeah. And you guys have done an extraordinary job throughout the years in our relationship and partnerships of like even just what you've done to put on this podcast and to share a lens in like a really safe but also productive manner is really inspiring and awesome. So to see you finding ways to use the relationships that you have and leverage those and amplify them in a sector to help others who are trying to break into this market or also trying to learn more about it, or somebody who comes across this and is like, I never really understood what luxury weddings were about. It's really cool to see what the next step is for everyone. And so thanks guys for being, taking what is a passion project and bringing it forward. Yeah. It's really cool. I'm honored to be a part of it.
It's funny. It's also clients that I'll tell you a funny story. We had a client a few weeks ago. They inquired and I set up a call. And I got on the call with her and she stopped me right in the beginning of the call. She said, I'm going to just stop you right here. As I was doing my research on you, I found the podcast. And so I can't afford you, but we're making some transformational changes in our business because of the podcast episode. So thank you. It's just funny with the podcast. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But Lish, thank you though for joining us here, giving us your time, which is precious. Like,
thank you, guys.
Honestly humbled to know you and to work with you. It's like listening to you today. Like James said, we know you, but hearing you speak to it all, like it's humbling. We really are honored. Thank you.
Yeah. Likewise. Thank you, guys. I love the magic we create and the stories that we tell, and keep doing it. So
we're grateful. Thank you.
And I'm never drinking with you ever. So that's clear. Never drink with Lish. If you learn anything from this lesson, a day in May, never drink wine with her. She's milking you.
Listening.
Lish, thank you guys so much. And we're so grateful to be able to work with you and to have you on the podcast and share your knowledge. So thank you.
Likewise, guys.
Go
Thanks
Michigan.
so much. Yeah, go Blue.